Today is July the 14th of 2024. I'm Dan Rogers, the Potter County Republican Chairman, and today we are here with Sam Brown Silverman, who is the Chairman of Precinct 422 in Potter County. Sam, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Let's tell the voters what is the role of a precinct chair. A lot of people don't know that precinct chairs exist. Can you educate the voters on that?
Sure. Precinct chair for a party is, his purpose is to go and rally the voters to get out and vote. That's the simplest thing. Since the primaries are now over and we are concerned about the November election, the purpose now is to get out as many votes for Republican candidates as possible, and that is the role of the precinct chair.
A lot of people, I don't think, are really aware of how the two-party system works. You know, both parties, Democrat and Republican, it's actually in our state election code. And the precinct chairs are elected party positions of both parties. So the Democrats have precinct chairs, Republicans have precinct chairs. And the goal is that you have two strong parties, so both precinct chairs are engaging the people in their precinct so that the best ideas win and they choose the candidate that best represents what they believe.
Yes.
And I don't think a lot of people know that.
The system as we have it set up is to ideally encourage people to express their opinion through the polls and through voting. Since many people are unaware of many aspects of the political system or the importance of going out to vote, that is what the precinct chair is supposed to enable, is to make sure that we inform voters of their choices and the importance of voting in the election in November. And my job specifically is to educate people and persuade them to vote for Republicans in November.
So the precinct chair is really probably the most important position in America.
I'd respectfully change that. I think the voter is the most important position in American politics. Yeah. And the precinct chair's job is to get the voters out in the precincts. And the precincts are small enough geographically and in terms of population that a precinct chair could employ block captains or other subordinates to help get out the message and get out the vote. And in the election that we're going to have in November, it's going to be extremely important to make sure that the people's voices are heard and that we get Republicans elected in November.
Your point's well taken. I guess I'd qualify that by saying the precinct chair is the most important elected official.
It is also humbling for you to say that. So thank you, but it's a responsibility.
Let's tell the voters a little bit about your background and then how you came to be a precinct chair.
My background, I was born and raised here in Amarillo, except for going off to college and law school. I've been here my whole life. I've been practicing law here for a little over 34 years now. I ran for the 108th District Court in 2024, and I've been active in the Republican Party largely since my mother passed away a few years ago. My wife and my in-laws have been far more active for much longer. And I became a precinct chair because my residence is in the precinct, and I believe it's important to get out the votes. We did not have a precinct chair in Precinct 422. There are still many, many registered voters there, many people who do vote in Precinct 422, as well as all of the 400s, and I believe that it's important to get those folks out to vote and make sure their voice is heard.
My understanding is a lot of people up in that area aren't voting because they don't trust technology. What do you say to that?
I would agree. It's not just technology. I think that many people simply don't trust the system. They feel that their vote doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how they vote or whether they vote because the system's already rigged. I don't say that lightly because that's one reason I wanted to be a precinct chair was because I believe that the votes do matter. And if a person doesn't vote, then their vote obviously doesn't count. Their voice is not heard. And the basic distrust of our political system right now is rooted in part in our electronic ballots. There is a real concern as to whether they're accurate. There is a real genuine issue as to whether the machines can even be checked at all. That being said, it's a system we have this year, and the best we can do right now for this particular election cycle is simply get as many people out to vote as possible. And until we can do something about the electronic system and get back to paper, then we just need to trust that somehow the electronic system will count people in precinct 422, the 400s, and all of Potter County correctly. There's a lot of faith involved in that. But,
I'm passionate about eliminating the computerized voting. I can't get my mind around how anybody could think that putting a computer between you and your vote makes any sense. My concern is that there is no ballot now. But with the current system, if everyone would show up and vote, it'd be much less easy for them to manipulate, if it's being manipulated.
Even if it's not being manipulated, and by the way, I do agree with you, but even if it's not being manipulated, it's important that we get lots and lots of people out to vote because their communities, I mean all the precinct 400 precincts, or even every precinct in Potter County or every precinct in the state of Texas. It's important that the people's vote be counted and their voice be heard. This is going to be, at least on a national level, a very close election, and it's very, very important that the conservative values that I've run into in talking to people here in Potter County are reflected and taken to whichever office is on the ballot in November.
Can you tell the voters generally what the boundaries are of the people you represent?
Sure. Precinct 422, it's generally from about 3rd Street north, Southwest 3rd on the south side, 287 on the east side. I believe it goes up to about Georgia Street on the west side, McMaster's, and then I think it goes a little north of the boulevard, Emerald Boulevard. That's roughly, very roughly, what Precinct 422 looks like.
Yeah, it takes in San Jacinto, downtown.
It takes in pieces of San Jacinto, yes.
Pieces, north part of San Jacinto, north part of downtown, and along up to Emerald. The Heights is part of 422. Right. And then the rest of the 400s are kind of north and
they go
east.
north and west of that point. Yeah, north and west of essentially 3rd Street and 287. Again, don't exactly remember where the boundary stops for Precinct 400. But
so you've got a lot of people to contact up there, and precincts, so people know, are actually broken down to no more than 5,000 voting age population. And a lot of people don't understand why we have precincts, a 5,000 voting age population. But that's because Plato said, no republic can survive if any one person represents more than 5,000 people. So that's where that came from. But in a typical precinct, you have 50% typically are registered, 50% vote in the general, half of that many vote in the primary, and half of that many vote in the city and off-year elections.
Well, in this last primary, the voter turnout was extremely low, which is surprising given the number of contested and interesting and important races we had in March. Again, it has a lot to do with simply voter education. Other precincts in Potter County have relatively high turnout. Other precincts have low turnout, and unfortunately 422 is on the lower end. But there are still many, many people whose voices count, their opinions count. When I was block walking for my campaigns, I met a lot of people who voted in the Republican primary. And they were very interested in the issues. They were very interested in what was on the ballot. They were happy that someone actually came and talked to them. And the sense that candidates or public officials aren't particularly engaged with them feeds into the perception that their votes or their opinion doesn't matter. And part of what I'm going to try to accomplish between now and November is to get voters to realize that everybody's vote counts the same, or at least it should, and that everybody's opinion on matters of public policy and who an office holder is and what that person should be doing also counts the same. So that's part of the voter education aspect that I'm pursuing. It's not just teaching them about the political system writ large, but it's also about teaching about the particular issues that are at stake in this election, and there are many profound ones this time, and I hope that I can address it. I think that's what the Republican Party is very focused on this time around, and we have a big job ahead of us.
If we could just get people to understand how important they are, and particularly their vote in our political system, it's a great equalizer. It doesn't make any difference if you make $10,000 a year or $10 million a year. Your vote is the same. It's a great equalizer. So if those people don't vote, they're giving away a extremely valuable resource.
I agree, and that's why I got involved, and that's why I enjoy being part of the Republican Party Executive Committee with you. That the importance of making sure that people learn or relearn or learn for the first time the importance of public participation in our republic, I believe is extremely important. And we live in a time where government power, government authority, and those I think are two entirely different concepts, power and authority, are sometimes confused by those who hold office, that elected officials operate within authority, and we the voters need to make sure they do not exceed their authority by exercising power unduly. And all of that begins with the election process and the voter going out and expressing the priorities that they have, each voter has, and the importance of the issues and the policies that they want their elected officials to enact and follow through on. And
So if the voters want to learn more, people in your precinct or anybody, how do they contact you?
get in contact with me through the Republican Party county office.
Call us at 806-351-0884.
I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm glad you remembered that.
Or they can email us at info@amarillo.gop.com.
We have a very fine office staff who's very good about getting the information out to all the precinct chairs, and we meet regularly, and so we'll be able to address whatever queries, concerns, and interests that come our way. And we're very, very interested in hearing what folks have in mind.
And if somebody wants to help you that lives up in that area, you could appoint them as a precinct captain, and they could help you engage the voters in your community.
I would very much welcome the help. It is that particular precinct is geographically relatively large. There are many, many people in it, and each one of them need to be addressed and engaged, and make sure that we get out, make sure we get everyone who can vote out to vote.
And if they haven't registered or need to register, they can come by our headquarters office or call it, and Karen will happily register them to vote.
And we welcome that very much so.
All right, Sam. Well, we appreciate you coming, and hopefully the voters will get acquainted with you, and they'll be meeting you soon, and they'll see your face in front of their door one of these days. They'll know who you are. They'll put their guns away and answer the door now.
I think it's important that voters be able to ask hard questions, and as a surrogate for the campaigns, I believe members of the executive committee should be able to answer those questions and meet with voters. And if we don't have the answers, then it's our responsibility to get it for them. And I'm looking forward to doing that. Preferably after it's not 100 degrees outside, but it'll cool down shortly.
Wait till evening. All right, Sam. Well, we appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Dan.